All right, welcome back. We have finally reached the more practical part of the course. I know so far things have been fairly theory heavy, and I really hope that you've gone through the exercises a couple of times at least that I've presented to you so far. Really, I cannot emphasize this enough. It's a training like every other training. You got to train your mental muscles, your emotional muscles, in order for them to work properly. So please, if you haven't, try to incorporate at least one of the exercises that I've been showing you so far into your daily routine. Because if you don't practice this daily, you won't be able to implement it when you are at the table. Really remember that whenever you are in a stressful situation, in a situation where tilt may become an issue, you will have a much harder time to respond mindfully to what's going on at the table if you haven't practiced this before. All right, so with that said, let's jump right into the action today. Just kind of to recap what happens during tilt here, right? So it really starts with certain thoughts and emotions, and by now you hopefully have a really good understanding of what kind of thoughts and emotions these are for you individually. That's really the first step. Now, the next step is really the crucial part here. This is the gap that I've been talking about before. The more training you have, the bigger the gap is, and the training takes place away from the table, and you implement the strategies at the table, right? At some point it becomes a part of yourself. You won't have to use particular strategies anymore. You don't have to do a breathing exercise every time you realize that you are going on tilt. This will become second nature at some point. In the beginning, you will have to use, certain techniques to make this happen, to get you back into an emotional and mental state that is not likely going to make you tilt strongly. So the main point here that I wanted you to take away is the tilt is your behavior. It's not how you feel necessary. It doesn't matter if you are emotionally ramped up, if you have a lot of thoughts, and you still continue to play well. Tilt is our behavior, and this is what you absolutely have to understand. This is what tilt really is. It's not what everyone thinks. It doesn't really, honestly, you could feel and think whatever, you could have the strongest emotional response. If you still manage to make the play that is the best play, I wouldn't consider it tilt. So with that said, let's jump into the strategies that you can use away from the table and at the table to regulate your emotions. All right, emotion regulation and tilt. There are basically two phases where you can, regulate emotions. And the first phase is called antecedent focus. It's a fancy word for before tilt happens. Before tilt. And the other, conversely, is response focused. Is all the techniques and strategies that you can implement when you are already on tilt. Right? So there's a distinction between the two. Let's start with the antecedent focus strategies. Basically, there are two main strategies that you can use here, aside from all the knowledge that you've been learning. Really, you can kind of perceive that as antecedent focus strategies, because this is the work you do away from the table, right? But this is kind of let's say you're already you're about to sit down at the table. Then these two situation selection and situation modification come into place. Now, situation selection is an interesting strategy for you as a poker player, of course, because let's say you found out that your tilt triggers are a specific, game dynamic, or it's a certain opponent or a certain type of opponents, right? These are situations where you can select that situation. You can simply, in order to avoid tilt, you can simply game select, for example. Game selection is a type of situation selection that allows you to regulate your emotions because you're not going to tilt in that game, right? And really, this is an important strategy. If you notice that certain games are tilting you and you can avoid them, then you have to do it, right? I know this is kind of an ego thing oftentimes for poker players, but if it's clear to you that this is the source of your tilt and you don't get a grip on it, then you have to game select better, period. And situation modification is a little bit different. You are basically already in the game, and now you have a couple of options that you can use to modify the situation so that you are less likely to tilt. Some examples would be, you could, when you're in a live game, you could put on your headphones because you notice that the trash talk from the other players gets you tilted. When you're playing online, you could close the chat because maybe you're playing heads up or something, or certain opponents are kind of tilting you because they're trash talking you through the chat, right? I know this is really simple, but you have to look at all the range of options that you have in order to avoid tilt, right? You could also listen to music while you're playing if you notice that this keeps your attention away from the cues that are likely to get you tilted, right? So let's go over to the response-focused options that you have. Now, attentional deployment, this is basically the response-focused action that I suggest, right? It's all the exercises that you're doing throughout this entire course. They have a couple of outcomes in mind, right? The first one is attention training. Attention training. Yeah, that's great. Basically, what you're doing is you're learning to attend to the relevant cues. Whenever you're at the poker table, there are two types of cues. There are the relevant cues for you, which is the board texture, betting patterns, timing, whatever. These are the relevant cues, and the irrelevant cues are, your thoughts, your emotions, and you can learn to refocus your attention willfully to the cues that matter to you. You notice at the end of the day, when you get very good at this, you notice that certain thoughts are coming up, that certain emotions are interfering with your game, and now you've built up the skill that allows you to refocus attention on the cues that are relevant, right? This is the first one. This is attention training. Then the second goal is for you to increase acceptance and build up tolerance for these emotions and thoughts and physical sensations, right? You're basically training yourself to increase your personal zone because you will now be able to tolerate a higher level of anxiety. You're now able to tolerate a higher level of frustration, of anger, because this tolerance allows you to experience higher levels of anxiety, for example, and still play good poker. That's the second goal. And the last goal is to learn to willfully regulate emotions. Regulate emotions. That is when you notice that you're reaching a level of emotion that is uncomfortable, that you know that you're likely to lash out, that you know you're about to tilt. You now have strategies in place that allow you to decrease your emotional arousal, right? These are the three primary goals of this entire course and of each and every exercise that you have gone through and that you will go through. And basically all of these, at the core, they have attentional deployment. The stronger you are at the skill of managing your attention, of refocusing attention, the more will you be able to willfully deploy attention where it needs to be. You can take away the attention from the cues that tilt you, and you can refocus on the things that's important to you. For example, the breathing exercise is nothing else. It's attentional training. You're training yourself to refocus on the breath every time a certain thought pops up, a certain emotion pops up, you may feel uncomfortable, you can then refocus your thought, right? I know this is, in the beginning, it may feel weird to go through these exercises, and they may feel very distant from what's going on at the poker table, but you're really honing the skill of attention deployment. You're learning to refocus on the stuff that's important for you. Then, in a similar vein, you're increasing your tolerance for these emotions by sitting down every day for 5 minutes and by just observing your emotions, right? This is something uncomfortable. This is something we have to learn. Most people are not very good at this, right? We're not very good at sitting down and observing without becoming attached, because this is what happens when you go on tilt. You become so attached to your emotions, to your thoughts, to your feelings, that you're going down the tilt cascade, right? You're adding up dirty emotions, and basically this is where everything comes together now. You now have all the skill sets that allow you, if you go through the exercises regularly, that allow you to regulate this process. And at the end of this process is you will be able to regulate your emotions like you want. You will be able to down-regulate them when you feel that your arousal is too high, and you will also be able to up-regulate them when you feel like you're bored, because you can choose what to attend to. And then lastly, I quickly want to go over this, the cognitive change. This is basically what the traditional psychological approaches that they maintain, that you have to change your thoughts, you have to change your mental state. Basically, you have to get into a certain state, change bad thoughts into positive thoughts, reframe a lot of stuff. And this is not something that I teach in this course, but it's also a response-focused emotion regulation technique. Now we get into the exercise for this week, or rather it's 2 exercises. And the first exercise is an observation exercise again. I want you to, hopefully you've gone through your own tilt continuum. You have established kind of, at least mentally, where it is that you need to quit the game, or where it is that you have to engage in a certain exercise in order to downregulate your emotional state. So what I want you to do is every 45 to at the latest 90 minutes when you're playing, I want to rate that you rate yourself on your personal tilt continuum. You can do this on a scale from 1 to 10, and you have to, of course, personally have set a point beforehand where you want to engage. Let's say maybe it depends on your tolerance. For some it may be a 5. For another person it might be a 7. I want you, for yourself, to find out, to have a mental reference point where you need to do something, where you need to either have to quit or engage in exercise. And then every 45 to 90 minutes, I want you to rate yourself. Put it down on a piece of paper, and that's all I want to do. That's all I want you to do. Of course, if you are above your personal tipping point, you can do one or two things. You can either take a break, if that's possible, that's the best choice, or you can engage in any mindfulness exercise that you learned during this course. You could do a quick breathing exercise. You could lie down for 10 minutes, go through the body awareness exercise, whatever feels best to you. And then after that, you obviously have to reevaluate if you want to continue or not. Again, this may not sound very relevant. Please engage. This is important. You're learning by doing this, set yourself a timer. Get yourself an alarm clock and set it to either 45 to 90 minutes. And every time the alarm clock goes off, just, note down, okay, now I'm at a 4, I'm at a 5, I'm at a 6, I'm at a 3, I'm at an 8, and then continue accordingly. So the next exercise is, I want you, for the next week or the next couple of days, whatever, really, it's important that you do it a couple of times, and of course, hopefully make one of all these exercises, at least one of them, make it a regular habit. Sit down for at least 5 minutes and observe your emotions and your thoughts. And this exercise is designed for you to increase acceptance and tolerance. So every time, you can sit down, get comfortable. You could start with taking a couple of deep breaths, or giving yourself like a minute or 2 maybe where you're just observing your breath, kind of to get in, get into the exercise. And then what I want you to do is I want you to just label whatever you're feeling or thinking, right? Or maybe even if you're feeling physically uncomfortable, I just want you to internally, you can either speak it out, but you don't have to. You can also do it internally. You can just label what's going on. It's like anger, frustration, or pain and back pain, whatever it is that you're noticing at the moment. Speak it out or say it to yourself internally and then let it go. Again, this is not going to be comfortable, I can tell you, right? This is not a relaxation exercise. This exercise is designed to build your tolerance, right? To build up your tolerance and acceptance to these emotions and thoughts. Because the better you get at this, the more you train away from the table, the better will you be at exercising this tolerance, this acceptance when you are at the table. And believe me, when you go through this exercise a couple of times, you'll notice that the emotions and the thoughts, they will lose their power over you. So these are 2 exercises I want you to go through this week. Yeah, and that's it. In the next session, that will either be the last session or the penultimate session, I will give you a few more mindset shifts that I believe are very helpful, that will help you go through the day by day. All right, see you in the next session. Bye.